And we're gonna go now to the part 3. So this is the part 3 now. We're gonna talk about your NF blast. So all 4 of you have NF blast, but 3 of you have NF blast last. All right. So the only way we can do this is if we start with Marco, because Marco is the only one with NF blast in a savior state. Although Marco's NF blast is the 3rd and 4th function, so it doesn't really. It's still going to be not as easy as an INFJ's NF blast or an ENFJ's NF blast. So Marco, you have NF blast 2nd. How do you personally experience NF blast?
It's something that took quite a while to become conscious even. Funnily enough, I actually felt it was NT first and ST second that became most used due to circumstances and whatnot. Sorry, that's my dog. So it's actually only when I hit my 30s that I really became conscious about what's actually going on when it comes to the NF. Like I was always doing it, don't get me wrong. And when I mean what I was always doing it unconsciously, it was even from very young, I chose a future identity I wanted to become. And I would just build habits around it and take years to reach that identity. And that started even when I was 15. I was like, I'm going to open my restaurant when I'm 20. I'm going to do all these steps in order to become that person. And so just go through the steps and you become it, basically. So that's kind of how it works for me. So I just constantly trying to choose the right identity for my future self. So I even right now picture myself as an 80-year-old guy and what I want him to look back on in this moment in time. So I kind of make my priorities with my action and my habits and my choices based on that. So that happens really naturally, and it's something I update frequently. So like what my life purpose is, what's my life philosophy, and what is the best use of my time on this planet, basically.
Now, there's another ISTP that's double masculine with this guy has NF blast last. It's Conor McGregor, and he used NF sleep, or sorry, he used NF blast essentially to achieve things that most people will never achieve. Like in the UFC, he's the first person to hold 2 belts, 2 weight classes at the same time. First guy ever. He's an ISTP. When he was a kid, his sister tried showing him the book The Secret, and at first he laughed at it, right? It's like, haha, what is this like nonsense? This like, woo-woo nonsense. But then when he took it seriously and he started applying that NF on himself and started manifesting his dream, he achieved things that no one else did. Like I said, first guy to hold 2 belts, in 2 weight class, the richest MMA fighter of all time, net worth over $100 million. So
yeah,
you have this in a savior state though. So are you doing that like manifestation, that big picture thinking, and executing on your dream essentially?
Absolutely. The hardest part is actually choosing a path. Yes, I already achieved a few identities, which usually leaves me pretty flat. Like you run up the mountain and then you hit your dopamine, and when you arrive, it's kind of a flat experience, and I kind of have to choose something new. And there it's getting harder and harder to choose the next mountaintop to run up to, kind of deal. So that's kind of why I've had like 2 midlife crises. Every time I achieve my identity, that's when everything falls apart, basically. So that it actually created a tidal wave by going so all in on the MF.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you also use it on other people? Because part of NF Blast is kind of telling other people how they should mentally, behave or think. Like the good example is Gary V, right? Gary Vaynerchuk. He tells people, "Oh, you're scared to put content out online. Like, who gives a shit?" Like he'll say something like that, right? He's like, "Do what you're passionate about. Do what what your dream is." So do you do that to other people? Do you tell people like, how they should, how they should behave or think or feel about things that they're passionate about and whatnot, or do you not do that?
Not at all, actually. What I do is I look at your level. So usually when somebody approach me, go into my box, or we have a connection through whatever reason, and usually I already mastered the skill that the person wants to achieve, right? So I am the yardstick, so to speak, and my job as a blaster is to perceive what level you're at and babysit you through all the levels patiently, step by step, understanding how your logic works and how you understand information, and just slowly building you up so you reach my level. So that's kind of how I do my influence. I want to improve things around me, people around me. I want to improve them so they reach my level. So I do that really aggressive with double masculine energy. So that's kind of what I just naturally do. I just see, you have this problem in life. I kind of figured it out. Let me help you through the steps. And I just go step by step.
That's so interesting coming from like an ISTP or IP point of perspective. So you are the bar, and people are trying to reach your level. That's so interesting.
That's kind of how it works. So that's why the DIs have so high standards, because we want to inspire people around us. That's kind of how we feel we contribute to our tribe, right? So we gotta lead by example. Another thing is I always feel like I have to be my blaster lesson. I cannot give a blaster lesson unless I've integrated in my life or I have something sort of experienced my lesson. So it really comes from like being really congruent and having really high integrity. And from there on, this person will respect you. Like all IPs I've tested about respect, right? So you only get that respect by being that identity, basically. And through that, you can inspire.
That's so good, man, because I think this is why we're doing this, because you can see how it's different for all of you guys. And like no one would have ever imagined that from an ISTP standpoint that has it in a savior state, what NF Blast really means is you are the bar, and once you hit the bar, you are the role model, and you are now what people want to be like. And now you can inspire people by telling them they can reach your level, and you're the example. You are the model that they're trying to achieve. And so that's very interesting now how you're doing it in how you're doing it as an ISTP. Because I think it's also pure. It's more pure that way, because I mean, some people might call you out too and think, okay, you're full of yourself. But if you did achieve what you said that you are trying to inspire people to do, then it's like Conor McGregor. He's an arrogant jerk, right? But guess what? No one's gonna take away that he has 2 belts, over $100 million. No one's gonna take that away from him. It is true. Those are all true, right? So when he's inspiring people to get to his level, he has set the bar. So it is true what you're saying. So it's like a fine line between arrogance and truth, to inspire people.
Also, it's easier to reach people's empathy if you're already going through their fear and their pain. I understand your pain. That's very powerful when you want to connect and inspire a person. It's like, I know exactly what you're facing. Like, this is how you go through this wall. So that's kind of how it goes about.
Right. No, I love it, because it's perfect. You're right. There's a lot of truth in what you're saying. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You're an ISTP and you're supposed to have the least empathy type, but because you've gone through all the steps already and you've experienced all the pain in the steps, then you can share that with people and you can understand, which step they are and what they're feeling in that moment. Yeah. Oh, dude, that's gold, man. That's awesome.
All right, cool. Yeah,
nice. Let's go with the other single decider here with Rob now. Rob, so you are an ENFJ. Technically, NF Blast is your first and second function. Okay. So even though you have it last, technically, if you start to use it, it wouldn't be the hardest thing in the world. Technically. I don't know, but I want to hear from your own personal experience. Yeah, of course, reality is different, obviously, from theory. But how do you try to inspire other people, at NF Blast?
So it's interesting talking about my NF Blast, because it's almost like talking about like something I don't have. or is something I'm trying to work towards. And it's interesting hearing Marco talk about, because it is, he kind of talked about seeing himself in the future. I was thinking like, am I doing sleep when I'm doing that? But it is like where you are in the tribe, like what's your purpose? That's kind of like a question I've sort of been asking myself recently, in terms of like trying to tap into that. So it's like, what is my purpose here? What am I trying to do with all this information I'm gathering? Because it's like I've got the double activated consume on the other side. That's kind of just like, oh, I need to know all this information before I can even have a purpose, even know what my purpose is supposed to be. I guess it's like that's blinding me from what that is. So now I'm kind of like going like, okay, what have I done? What do I want to accomplish in the future? So that's kind of what that process looks like. It not even teaching information to people. It's looking at what I want to provide so that I can build myself up to do it, similar to what Marco was saying. So I can get out of the blast and then go back to consuming it so I can build myself up. But yeah, I've actually been trying to tap into this a little bit recently in the Facebook group, just like trying to go down my entire animal stack, like experience things and consume them and sleep on them, so that I have like a processed NI that I feel like I can share that would be valuable to others. Because it is just, sometimes you shape things in your mind and they're not necessarily like stuff you can communicate to others because they're so personal to you, but then there's parts that, wait, this is actually like something that's worth sharing with other people. And I don't always think about it that way, which sounds weird as like a DE lead. I don't think about like, oh, I need to like give this to other people, because that's not what I'm normally doing with that. But I'm trying to like tap into that part of myself that I've been resisting for whatever reason. I feel like I just kind of did I answer the question here, Kendrick?
Yeah, partially. So part of Blast is also getting started, right? And I think I don't know if everyone knows here, but you have a website, Subjective Personality. So you have done some Blasts. So it's not like you haven't done it. There is.
Yeah, I don't like that definition. I don't think getting started makes much sense, because like play is just like throwing stuff out there, so that could be getting started, and I just like follow my own ball down the hill. Like that's, so I don't know. Maybe getting started is like narrowing down so that you have like something specific to get started on, but like I get started on stuff. It's just like stuff rather than like a specific thing that I know what my intended outcome is. Because when I made that website, I didn't know what I really wanted to do with it. Even I just kind of wanted to get some information out there. And yeah.
Yeah. So. Okay. Well, you don't have to be so humble, because I think
sure.
Part of the definition of class is teaching your known information. Mm-hmm. And what did you do in your website is you're teaching your known information to the tribe. Are you not? So yeah. Is that not Blast? So you are.
Yeah, I'm definitely more comfortable doing it via writing. Okay. And a lot of the time I feel like I'm just like NTing things. So I feel like I could tap into the value part more. Like I think people find it valuable because they're in OPS and they want to understand OPS, but it's not like necessarily valuable outside of this specific tribe. So that's something I've tried to think of broader context about. Like, how can I relate these ideas to, like, say, The Bachelorette? Like, how can I say, like, I can use these concepts to be like, oh, this is like a problem that these two people are having on the show, and they're like talking past each other because of like something with OPS, and maybe not even using those terms, but like being able to say like, this is a dynamic that is like underlying is true, but not even needing to like use those terms and stuff. That's like something like I would like to be able to do, but feels like it's like so far out of reach from, I feel like I should just be able to do that, but it's like, feels very elusive to me. So
right. Well, I mean, it just means you have partial use of that NF blast. You don't have full use of it, but you have partial use of it. So yeah, you know, like you said, you can still sprinkle in more NF stuff in your writing, essentially. So work in progress, but hey, you're doing it, so you know, better than not doing it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna move on to Joyce now. So Joyce, you're an INFJ. This is your first two functions. You know, a lot of INFJs are like super good at teaching and blasting and getting started. What has your experience been like with teaching your known information to people, especially the NF known information?
Yeah, I love to teach information surrounding relationships. That's like my primary place where I like to give insight. And so I feel like personality theory is kind of like the side door to talking about people themselves. You can kind of get, so I kind of try to teach my known information through guiding other people. So it's more of a interactive play process. I kind of ask them, does that resonate with you, or does that reflect your experience? So they have time to play back with me if I'm saying anything incorrectly. So I'm a little more humble than like a blast higher up person who would just be like, this is who you are, accept it, take this known information. I'm more having a back and forth dialogue, playing with someone to see if it's truly resonating with them. Someone who I really resonate with in terms of thought patterns is Matthew Hussey. I know he's way better at blasting than I could ever be. Like, his videos are supreme. But the way that he thinks is exactly like me. So the inside of our brains contents are exactly the same. Like, I've thought of exactly the thoughts that he's had and that he's talking about, but he says it so eloquently. While when I talk, sometimes it's either very shy, so it sounds like a mouse is telling you a blaster lesson, or I get really nervous and then I just kind of look really bashful on camera. And so the point doesn't go across because I start to slowly reduce my volume because I'm more comfortable blasting lessons in my sleep to myself rather than actually talking to people. Talking to people is hard, and it's something I had to get used to with my YouTube channel, but it's definitely something that is something I had to work on. And I guess I love to blast to people about the most important parts of the concepts. So I'll try to figure out, like, what is the 80-20 of this concept that I want to teach people? And I want to just give them the 20% that has the most bang for your buck. And so I'll try to, like, say it to them so it gets across and it can help them in their life. It's kind of giving them a hippie lessons in how to treat people more kindly, how to love people better, or how to love yourself better, something about bettering their mindset or bettering their beliefs or bettering how they view themselves or other people so that everyone can love each other better. So it's really gushy, warm, fuzzy stuff. Mm-hmm.
I like how you went through the steps before you got to the NF blast. Like, you talk about your NT sleep first, 80-20, you went all logical about it, and then you went to the SF play and you talked about like love, care, and all that stuff before you went to like the NF stuff, So definitely, I think you guys are following the animal usage before you can get to the point of using it. So you have trouble with the NF inspiring people part though, yours is feminine, right? So it's gonna be like guiding people, I guess, to inspire them in a more gentle way. But I guess you're more bashful when it comes to doing that. Okay. All right. Manley, you're the last guy. You're gonna be the guy that you have. Not only do you have blast last, it's your third and fourth function. So this is gonna be like the ultimate supreme hardest thing in the world compared to everyone here.
Complete idiot blast.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you? So let's start. Let's go over the parts. How do you get started?
Okay. For me to start with blast, I kind of had to conceptualize what it actually is. And I think I've determined that what blast is to me, NF blast, is inspiring, empowering, and holding people accountable to being the best version of themselves. That's what I've determined NF blast is for myself. And when I'm taking on the role of being the blaster in any given context, I'm basically asking myself, okay, what is my most idealized version of any given situation or organization or context that we're dealing with right now? And then I kind of ask myself, okay, what is it that I need everyone to believe about themselves and about the whole tribe in order to accomplish that specific vision or goal? And I really have to spend time ahead of time planning out what that actually is in order to even halfway speak it out in a way that people can understand. Like you can even tell right now, like I'm kind of explaining it, but I'm like, you can tell that I'm having to stop for like a second in between each word to make sure that I can explain it in terms that make sense. And that's important to me. It's almost like I have, like in order for me to NF blast someone, I have to explain it in terms that make sense because my brain is like wired that way. And it's almost impossible because NF is freaking conceptual la land. So it's like, holy crap, how do I like merge my brain so I can effectively do this animal that is extremely important in society? And I learned that the hard way by people doing dumb things and being idiots and then realizing like, oh, I never told that guy what to do, basically. So that's why he's being an idiot. But it really is the polar opposite. It's kind of sad, but it's almost the polar opposite of the way my brain naturally works, which is I really assume the best of everyone. And I assume that they know what the right thing to do is for themselves in any given context, which is a blatant lie. Like people are, oh man, my ST meanness would come out if I explain how people are. But like, really, I've had to just like deal with myself and starting to understand that like, okay, people are different. People have different strengths and weaknesses. People have gifts and they also have whatever the opposite of a gift is. And when I'm NF blasting, I need to assume this person knows nothing. They are a flesh robot. They're a robot like Rob was talking about. Like I have a robot that I need to program using my words to do what they're supposed to do in this specific context. So I kind of like have to picture out like what that actually looks like and why I'm capable of doing what I need to be doing and somehow do it correctly the majority of the time. And I have to figure out like, okay, how do they even arrive here? And then like start off by inspiring them with NIFE. Like I could give examples, but I'm not going to do that because it would suck. But I think that's really what it is to me. But at bottom line, the way I explain it is like my responsibility as an NF blaster when I am blasting is to inspire people, empower them, and then hold them accountable. And I've kind of gotten good at the 1 and 2, but holding people accountable, holy crap, I don't know how anyone does that. Like my business partner is a freaking blast first, and he's like, every day he like calls each person and he's like, hey, I just wanted to make sure you got this done. Hey, I wanted to make sure you're doing this. What are you doing next? What are you doing today? I'm like, I will never be that person. Like, F that. If I have to do that, if someone makes me do that, I'll fire you. Like, don't make me do that. Seriously. That's mean, but that's me being like honest, blast last demon person.
Okay, so I think you have partial use of your NF blast, Manley, because even though you have it last and it's your third and fourth function, you did explain it clearly. Like you did define NF blast, and it sounds like you're doing some of it, not completely. Obviously, it's gonna be a demon.
Right.
I think you also explained feminine FE. You know, with like telling people, like enforcing what to do to people, because you have your blast is it's gonna be more on the feminine side. So I want to bring it back to Marco, because Marco earlier, I don't know if you heard Marco talk about his NF blast earlier, which is awesome. Marco is double masculine, and he has masculine, FE, or masculine with a tribe. He's also a business owner like you are. You had like the restaurant, right, Marco, and like a bunch of other businesses?
No, I'm a professional poker player, but I used to have a restaurant when I was 20. Yeah.
Right. So you used to have a restaurant.
Yeah.
So when you had a restaurant, was it easy for you to hold people accountable and tell people what to do? Because you had that masculine.
I never got that far. Like I just had a business partner, and I was in Copenhagen, Denmark, where salaries are super high, and I had to do everything myself, basically. So it's not like I had the role.
Sounds like paradise.
Context. What did you say?
I said, sounds like paradise, doing everything yourself instead of dealing with people.
Yeah, yeah. For sure, man. Well, I have done coaching with poker though, and many other endeavors, because I kind of enjoy it actually. So whenever I'm skillful in something, I just take on people and build up their skill level, like step by step. And how it works for me is just I take wherever you're at and I just work from where you're at. And I don't care if I have to repeat it, or if I see you next week and nothing happened because you couldn't sleep process it. That's okay. Let's just do it again. And we just work with the patterns, of course. it gets more, the raw material, of course, matters in a sense that the tolerance level is harder. If it's somebody has like sleep blast, it can be hard to kind of do the blasting all the time and kind of build up the foundation to reach that mastery, because they will always skip, right? And so forth. But it's usually just a patience game of you wanting to repeat your message in a way, and just say it as it is, but in a loving way, I guess.
All right. So since there's three of you with blast last. What life problems have you guys had? I'll leave the floor open, and you guys can answer this at any order that you want. What life problems have you had for not using NF blast? Like, what good things do you think can happen if you did use it, and what bad things are happening because you're not using it as much as you should be using it? Who wants to answer this first?
I need to go first because I actually have to jump off pretty fast, sadly. I'm sorry, man. Blast last for me, my biggest struggle has been my brain. I've noticed that I naturally go into situations, or I used to, I don't do it anymore, geez. But I used to go into situations assuming that people could handle, it's almost like handle themselves. So if I like gave them the general direction or told them the thing they needed to accomplish, I need this done by this time, I assumed that they would do that because they have personal integrity. They have the ability to use common sense to like determine like at least the next somewhat step that they need to take. And I learned the hard way that that's not true. Like people will lie about what they're capable of, or they're uncertain, or they're not actually as good as what they thought they were, something like that. I mean, I'm not going to assume they're just complete idiots or they're a bad person, but in general, people struggle to actually realistically understand what they're truly good at, and they struggle to hold themselves accountable to that. There's a lot of mental work that really goes into actually accomplishing a goal. And I had to learn that the hard way by people not performing, right? So now I'm like building out systems and setting up methods to hold people accountable to actually doing what they're supposed to, trying to figure out why they're not doing what they're supposed to, giving them very step-by-step methods for making sure that they do what they're supposed to. And for me, blast in a lot of ways has come down to like simplifying things to a disturbing extent. Like consume, lead, blast last is probably known for sometimes like overcomplicating things, making things too over-informing, when in reality, it's like, you don't need these 30 steps. Like, here's your one, like, here are the 5 things you have to do for me to let you keep your job. Or here's the 5 things you have to do to make money. Or here's the 5 things you have to do to maintain your marriage. And it sounds like over blasty, but that's something I had to learn the hard way. And it basically, the thing that happened to me is that I've just lost a lot of money because of it. You know, I've lost a lot of money, or relationships. Overall, I can maintain relationships because I'm not the type of person that like ends a relationship over someone not doing what they're supposed to. But it's really just, it hit me hard once I started a business because my responsibility is to make people produce real results that provide real value. So that was pretty much it for me.
Awesome, man. So I guess the NF is the battery to get people motivated to work hard and produce results. And if you weren't an NF blasting, then results were not going to come as much as you'd like. All right. What about Rob and Joyce?
I'm going to peace out, man. Appreciate you.
All right. See you, Manley. Thanks, man.
Bye, guys.
Bye, man.
And so for me, some of the ways that blasting has costed me as a blast last is what sorry, now I'm blasting but by tripping over my words. So the thing is, it seems like people tend to interrupt me when I talk because I don't say things with blaster conviction, because blasters will be like, yeah, this is fact. Like whatever they say sounds like absolute law of God. And when I say things, it's like there's a disclaimer, and it sounds less certain, so people don't take me as seriously as they would take a blast first. Whereas like we were talking about programming robots earlier, And I feel like when I try to say something that's trying to influence someone, they'll go like, oh, she doesn't sound that certain, so I'll take it like with 20% grain of salt. And whereas if a blaster says it, they might have not consumed enough information to even be telling other people things. But then the other people will actually take it in with their programming. They'll go like, yeah, whatever that NF blaster said is true. And then they'll actually take it in. Like, I don't know, blasters would make such good cult leaders, man. And then there's me who can't even like convince anyone to do anything. And so the ways that that blasting would have been more beneficial if I adopted it earlier on is, I guess I would have made a YouTube channel earlier on, because it did take me a while to start. And because I knew about type for a long time, but I only decided to start when actually a blaster, I think Megan Lavoda, she's a blaster, right? So she was the one who told me, Joyce, you need to start a YouTube channel. I really love what you have to say. And so that's why I started a YouTube channel, because the blaster programmed into me that, you know what, I can do this. You know, she empowered me. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? So, but I realized that, you know, there's a lot of advantage you have from starting your YouTube channel earlier. So there's a lot that I didn't capitalize on simply because I did it later on. And so that's my one regret, is that I couldn't get myself into motion fast enough. But I found the way that I could blast is to kind of pseudo blast through playing, like what Rob was talking about, how I'll just really play with people without a specific type of like blaster agenda. Like I didn't have blaster objectives, but I was trying to just play along with them to kind of coax information out of them. And so that's how I blasted. Other people blasted for me. Other people were my megaphone. So that was great. Outsourcing my blasting.
Outsourcing it. Yeah. Well, you know the saying, right? Like the best time to start something is like 5 years ago, and the second best time to start is now. So I think it's still good that you did it. And me and Benjamin always joke that like you started later than me and him, and you're kicking both our ass combined. So you know, like you're definitely like doing good. So you know that's a good thing. So who cares if you're a little bit later? If you're kicking everyone's ass, who cares? You know. And now Rob, you're the last guy here. Last problems. Good things that could have happened to you if you are doing it, and bad things because you're not doing it as much.
Yeah, you make it sound like it's like a big life thing, which I guess where I see it play out a lot is just like in conversations where like we're not just taking turns like we're doing here, and I need to kind of assert myself into the conversation that isn't just like throwing a disruption in. So yeah, it can be kind of hard to be like, oh, well, let me build on this conversation in a direction that's helpful to people. Like that's just like not where my mind is going first. So sometimes it's just like a gap, and I'm like, oh, is it my turn to direct the conversation? And then someone else talks and it goes away. It's just like those opportunities where it's like, oh, I'm like processing this slowly, but then someone else takes it. So it's like, oh, whatever. It wasn't that important anyway. So that's like a pretty common pattern. And then there's just, I feel like it's kind of like moving down the animal stack. I kind of get stuck in like the NT sleep type thing, like trying to really work out something that I feel really confident in, and I get kind of stuck there, and then just like don't take it to blast. Either because I feel like it's resolved by the time I'm done, or I'm just like so confused and I'm just like, oh, I need to like go do something else. So that's one of the things I'm kind of learning now, is to sort of not overthink it too much and just kind of send something out there. Which, yeah, I guess I do that a little bit with my articles, because like I don't proofread them a ton. I really wish somebody would, but I like hate like rereading my own stuff, because it's like I already read this, like why am I rereading this? So it's kind of boring. So I'm pretty meticulous when I go through it, but then I'm like don't want to just like read through the entire thing again sometimes. But it, as a life pattern thing, is just like going to switching, like potentially like interviewing at other places. Like I've been at the same job for the past like 7, I don't even know how many years now. So I've like thought about doing that, but just, I don't follow things through necessarily. It's like not taking it all the way. Envisioning myself all the way down there and actually seeing it through, it just like feels really difficult to do because there's such a pull to be like, wait, why are we spending so much time on that thing? We could be looking at all these other things. So it's like that drive to sort of gather and skib more, I guess.
I guess you don't finish what you start. That's the hard part with the.
Yeah. So I'll like have the idea and then be like, oh, well, I'll have like a lot of ideas and be like, which one of these am I supposed to do? I'll probably just do none of them. So, but yeah, having the idea and just like seeing it through, I'm finding helpful, but I need to like take that into a broader scale in my life because like, obviously you want to do things that are long-term, like bigger vision things, like what's my purpose? So starting like super big like that. And then maybe working my way down might be helpful, but yeah.
All right, guys. So we're gonna wrap this up soon. The last thing we're gonna do is leave the floor open to everyone. So if everyone has one question to ask someone in today's group panel discussion here, feel free to ask those questions now. So who wants to start and ask any question that you may have?
I was actually kind of curious about something that Marco said. He said he gets like these tidal waves from achievement. So are you like setting goals and then you're reaching those goals and then you're like, what's next? Is that kind of what's happening?
Yeah, it's just a constant dopamine rush. Like dopamine is when you're trying to get something that you cannot reach in the very moment, something you can't grab. It's something you have to plan and make an effort to achieve. And NI is very long term. So usually my mind is always in the future. So when I do right in the moment in the SE, it's kind of a downer because I was valuing the wrong things. I was rallying the wrong goals, perhaps. So it's more like that where the tidal waves goes, where it's like you saw Anthony Bourdain, right? He was mastering the SE, the SF, right? Being the most popular host, having his own food channel and all these things. And it was just one dopamine hit after another, but it's empty, right? So that's the hard part, is being in the here and the now, and just appreciating what you have, and not always be in the future, the next goal, the next thing. And that's the real struggle for a guy like me.
Nice. Marco or Joyce, do you have any for anyone in this group?
Well, in that regards to that question, I don't know if you have faced similar problems with your intuition, where you kind of reach your goal and then hit like a plateau.
Who are you asking?
Either Joyce or Roqb.
I was actually thinking about asking if Joyce related to that idea of like the SE feeling like really unfulfilling or something. But it's so fleeting, right? I don't know if it's like, maybe it's not as exciting for you guys because it's a demon. I don't know, but I see like it being fun, and I like want to chase after that a little bit. I want to go to the next thing to play with. So I kind of have my dopamine rushes in that sense, I guess.
Yeah, so Rob has a lot of dopamine.
I'll give space for Joyce to talk since she's Blast Last.
Yeah, because we're talking about Blast Last just now and how we don't speak until it's the last moment, and then someone else takes up the conversational the baton, and we're like, wait, I was just going to talk. I guess my thought will be lost forever. Yeah, I find SC like stresses me out sometimes because I'm very outside of the moment. I feel very disconnected from the moment. I always feel like I'm living in some form of the future. I'm always like future pacing. And so to come back to the here and now takes a lot of energy. And so I try to just get the here and now perfect. So I never have to waste that much energy, because I'm like, Well, because Marco talked about earlier about how he likes to learn through trial and error. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, that sounds exhausting to my energy reserves. And so for me, I try to get it as perfect as I can on the first run. I'm like, so that's why I'm trying to like plan it. So I'm like trying to see every way it could go wrong. And so like when I do it, so it'll take the least amount of readjusting as possible.
But I guess the plan doesn't really fit reality most of the time. If you had done the trial and error, you would have planned differently, I guess, and done different steps. Like you don't have the feedback loop when you plan so much in advance, I guess, right? There's only so much you can get correct because life is kind of unpredictable.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the IJ struggle.
Yeah. Or we like to tell, like, as an IJ with masculine NI, so it's like double NI. I feel like I can figure out all the known knowns. Like I can figure out every way it could go wrong. So I'm like, well, I might need to calibrate at this step. So then I'm planning for that calibration step, but it's still knowing that that's the unknown. So it's basically like planning around everything, even the things that you know you can't plan for. And so it's quite exhaustive.
Well, that to me sounds exhausting, what you just said, like that level of over planning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had a little bit of discussion about that in the NT sleep video with the masculine versus feminine plans, because the masculine NI seems to like take like a broader approach to planning, whereas feminine NI is like it needs to be really adaptive. So I don't know.
Absolutely, I'm the same. Yeah, feminine NI. Yeah, totally.
Wait, Joyce, I have a question for you now. So since you said what you said is kind of contradictory. You plan so you can get things right, so you don't burn out your energy because you don't have that much energy to begin with. But you also said you get very exhausted over planning.
So I didn't say I get exhausted from planning. Marco said that.
Okay, I misheard then. So over planning doesn't drain your energy at all. It's okay. It's like
it doesn't feel like I'm over planning. It feels like I'm planning just the right amount. There's nothing exhausting about planning to me. Nothing exhausting.
Okay, got it.
But it
you plan for me then?
It gives me a reassurance of freedom to plan. It's almost like because I have planned, I have control over the fate, and that the fate's not the one pushing me around. I feel like I'm in control of the chaos. I have, dogs, they have a leash. I have a leash over chaos if I have some sort of general mode of going about things. But if I don't plan, it's almost like it feels effortless. The planning process for me feels effortless. It feels like the moment I see it, I know exactly how to go about it. So it almost feels like gliding. It feels like flying. Like planning to me feels like flying. Because it's that weightless, it's that effortless. But to let chaos kind of just throw me around like I'm a rag doll feels like absolute hell. Because I'm like, well, that situation, it went like I could have made it slightly better if I just thought about that, but I didn't think about that. So it felt like I didn't maximize anything about the situation, and that my life is characterized by whatever comes at me, and I don't even know what comes at me. And so I'm done. I'm KO'd. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not sure if I communicated that. I wish I had ST so I could make it more clear, but hopefully that painted some sort of picture.
Well, you gave me two thoughts when you said. The first thing is, how can sensory KO you? So that's kind of confusing to me. Like, what is it about ST like KO you to begin with? Like someone like punch you in the face or something? But like, or like how like so maybe you can answer that, and then I have a follow-up comment which I think is like,
yeah, it can KO you because you're gonna have to eventually adapt or plan to the situation. It's kind of like this. My mom is savior chaos for sure, and 5 minutes before any event, or 5 minutes before traveling somewhere like 3 hours away, she'll tell me, and she's like, Joyce, you know what? I planned, I mean, she'll be like, Joyce, today we're going to go to this place 3 hours away. because I felt like it on a whim. And you're going to have to adjust everything that you thought of today to just do whatever I feel like doing right now. And I'm like, Mom, okay, sometimes like I'll try to learn to SE. So I'll go like, you know what? I won't, no resistance. Or there's resistance, but I'm pretending like there's no resistance. So there's that situation. But two, sometimes the situations go sorely wrong. Like the place is closed, we went there, and then now we just have to go back. So it's like 6 hours of travel, and now I could have been like filming a YouTube video. I could have been talking to a friend who dearly needed counseling that day, but nope, I spent it traveling to a place that wasn't even open. And so sometimes being pushed around by the chaos feels like my life is up to the whim of the chaos, like my mom. So sorry, Mom.
Sounds like a pretty fun day.
Yeah, because for Rob, it's like, yeah.
I think it sounds very healthy that you have that dynamic. You need it. It's good to have a mom like
Marco
that.
thinks you need it.
Yeah. And another time I was knocked out by chaos is my mom, she bought like 60 cans of dog food because it was on sale, and she was like, heck yes. And then she realized that my dog hated that dog food, and my cats did too, as cat and dog food. And so I had to refund all of the food for her. And I was like, Mom, I always have to clean up all your chaos. So it's like she'll cause a spill on aisle 7, and she'll be like, Joyce, can you clean up aisle 7? And I'm like, Mom, I don't want to clean up aisle 7 for you. There's a quote that says, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. But my mom will come to me and go like, solve it now, please solve it now. Because like if she waits later, she'll forget about addressing the situation. So what she'll do is she'll always go like, okay, we need to do it now. And I'm like, Mom, can I do it when I have time to do it? Because now I have to talk to Kendrick. But then in the middle, she'll go like, hey, Joyce, can you help me with this? I'm like 5 minutes and I'm done my call with Kendrick. And I'm like, all right. So we've been learning that we need to adapt to each other. Like I need to be more flexible for my mom. And she also needs to stop butting into my Zoom calls with people just because she has an in the moment concern.
Is your mom like lead FI or something? Or like an ESFP or something? I don't know.
She's an ESFP, 100% ESFP.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Oh my God, that's rough for you.
You need to get that quote on a poster.
You know though, there is one thing you said earlier that I really like. So I think anyone that has a masculine NI, there is something good about you guys that I really like. I was thinking about it when you said this earlier. You know, in life, like we'd like to think that we're in control of our life, that we're the one that is, taking us on a journey someplace that we would like us to be at. And the only way to really be in control of your life is to control and plan your life so that you are in control of your life and you go to the exact direction that you wanted to go to, So I think with a masculine NI, or even with Marco with lead NI in general, Marco's more flexible because it's feminine, but you plan and chose and controlled yourself to get to the finish line. No one else did, you did. Like obviously in real life that's not how it works, but the fantasy of it is really nice, I think. The only fallacy I can think of is that thing that you envision in your head that is your final destination, your goal, your mission. It might not be what you wanted by the time you get there, because sometimes the detour takes you to a place where that's actually where you wanted to be at. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
I mean, that's like my nightmare for sure.
Also,
that's my nightmare. I said. That's why I don't trust the NI.
Oh, because you'll plan, get there, and you won't like it by the time you get there?
Well, I'm worried that's going to happen, basically. Yeah.
Like what's going to happen?
Like, I'm not going to like what I decided to stick with forever because I didn't explore all the options,
Right. But I think for both of us with Savior OE, I don't think that's a real problem. I think we are too crazy on the gathering. I think we need to be more like Joyce and Marco and narrow things down and execute. And then for these guys, they need to open up like different pathways.
Yeah. One last thought I had on the whole planning discussion is that, oftentimes I think to myself when I talk to someone and they say there are certain things you just can't plan for. I do agree with that. But I find that a lot of people sometimes say that with situations where I can see they could have totally planned for it. So in their view, they're like, this is totally unknown. And I'm like, some parts of that were totally possible to know if you just wanted to know it. Or at least I project onto other people that they're IJs as well. So what will happen is I'll go like, well, you could have planned for that, you just chose not to. But really some people don't see it as an area to plan, which is something like mind-blowing to me. I'm like, wow, some people just don't see that opportunity to be more in control of their circumstance, in that sometimes it's really hard to know when you can plan for certain things for certain people. And without typology, I would have not known that. I would have just went like, they're trying to make my life harder. Like I would have went like to my mom. My mom's just purposely trying to make my life harder, but she's really not at all. That's just how she's like. And it's out of like this innocence too. And so I stopped taking things personally, that it's not personal.
All right, guys. So I want everyone to have a final word, and then we'll wrap up the interview. Okay. So since Joyce is already on a roll, especially about her mom, let's pass the baton to Joyce. So, what advice, Joyce, would you give to the other three types that's not an INFJ that you can give that you think would benefit them? So give an advice to Rob and to Marco that you think would benefit their specific types, and then we'll do that for everyone too.
For sure. You're really stretching my blast last. Like you're growing me. You're taking the mentorship role, Kendrick, and you're really elevating you're either going to break me down and show me how poorly I can blast, or you're going to show me how great I can be if I just try to blast. So we'll see which one it is. Yes. And so, Rob, you're really great at lightening up the mood and telling and cracking jokes. Jokes are your specialty. Like I would love to give you a standing ovation for every time you've said something in a way I haven't thought of before, or like you say things in a because you're just playing and you're kind of saying it as you go, it sounds more real, like it's coming out of you. And a lot of times in the type community, things can sound kind of pre-planned and it's like, oh, huh. But for you, it sounds like you're saying it out of who you are, and I can tell, and it's really captivating to listen to. So although you don't have blast high up, you're still very captivating to listen to. And so sorry, wait. And so I guess the advice I would give to an ENFJ is to consume yourself. Please consume yourself. You are amazing. So take in all of that amazingness and consume your awesomeness. And the advice I would give to, I guess, Marco is, Marco, I really like hearing you speak as well. I noticed you do this thing that I see a lot of FE last people do, ISTPs, is that like Kendrick introduced you or something, and you did this nod. You're like, yes, Kendrick. And then you did this, it's like FE, but you planned the FE. And I'm like, I can totally tell that it's like you're used to kind of staying still. And then there are moments where you'll just do this solo head nod or like a few head nods to affirm the other person. It's like, hey, I appreciate your values, tribe values. Yeah. It's really awesome. I feel very listened to with that infrequent, but really reassuring head nod.
No, I mean, it's a big one. Usually when I'm consume lasting my audience, guys like you always catch it, basically. I usually just pretend I'm listening or whatever, and I usually don't get away with it if there's lead FE. It's really tough. Really, you always catch me. Fair play. Well played.
It's nice to talk to you. You're really rocking the SF with your haircut. It's got that SFness.
I didn't know. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not tracking so well, so yeah, okay. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And so I guess maybe what I would say to you as an ISTP is it seems like there's this really cool vibe to you. It's like there's this self over tribe type of loner, but like you're really cool being a loner type of vibe. Like you're good doing things by yourself, and you're quite sufficient with doing things with yourself. And I guess that's something I would like to learn from. I know I'm self above tribe too, but I feel like the IPs really do it really well. And so I'd love to, I don't know, just rub off some of that independence or autonomy that you naturally have. Yeah, that's really amazing.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. So back to you. What I've noticed with most IJ, especially lead NI, is that you guys are not adventurous enough. And not because you are planning so much, so you just stay in the basement kind of deal. And you don't really get to explore the world and see what else is there. So you end up getting a little bit a narrow view of the world through just your consume, I guess, and not through the SE. And you miss out on a lot of texture, I would say. That's also part of life, I guess. So that's my one for you guys. And
yeah.
For Roqb, for the EJs, definitely invest more in yourself. You deserve it. You're good enough, of course. And start small and build yourself up, right? And eventually you will get to see yourself and appreciate yourself, and you'll be able to look at yourself, which is the hard one, right? And really schedule in maybe just 15 minutes a day, half an hour a day. Hey, this moment is just for me, and I'm just going to sit with myself and just see what's going on, basically. So yeah, that's more or less what I've perceived in your guys' types. Yeah.
Doing anything regularly like that has always been a challenge. So I try and just like, okay, I'm like in the mood to do this week. I'm just gonna like do it a bunch this week. Like this week I've actually been doing a lot of like self-reflecting stuff, but the week before I was like kind of like I was skipping all over the place. Oh, there's a fly. But yeah, it's turned into like a compliment thing. I don't really like feel like I know you guys well enough to do these compliments. I feel like Joyce has like this natural INFJ compliment ability. That's like that was very nice. I guess that's a compliment. I did it by accident. But yeah, I mean, I just met you, Marco, but you seem like a really cool guy. I really like. You did an interview with Kendrick already? I definitely need to.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. I think like a year back or whatever. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Definitely have to check that out. But
yeah, all right.
Yeah. I thought we were supposed to give advice on like how to do our animals from our perspective or something. So that's what I was gonna do.
Yeah, you do that, please do that. It's okay if people took it a different direction, but that's okay.
Yeah. But Joyce mentioned earlier when we were talking about SF play about how like she feels like kind of silly doing it, but that's like almost the point. Just like making a fool of yourself, just allowing yourself to just be like whatever. And you know, I mean, that is like the OE that Marco was talking about, just kind of allowing yourself to like follow a whim. If you feel like saying something that's like a little silly, just try it and see what happens. So that's kind of what I would suggest with that. And consume, what would I suggest for consume? I mean, I feel like when I do it, I'm just like really locking in on what is happening and just allowing myself to follow each step. So just kind of allowing yourself to slow down. That's at least how I perceive it, because I guess in play mode, I'm just like juggling everything. But when I move into consume, it's really like tapping into the introverted part of myself and really seeing things through and understanding them. So I feel like you can almost see it when I bounce back and forth when I'm talking. It's just kind of funny. So yeah, that's my NF blast.
Awesome. Nice.
All right, guys, thanks for coming out today and doing this group panel interview. I know Rob was short circuiting there just a second, but that's okay. You know, in a good way. Yeah. because Joyce overloaded him with compliments, so he's short-circuited. But take it in, man. Consume it. Consume that compliment. It's all good stuff, man. So thanks, Marco, Joyce, Rob. I know Manley left early. That's okay. So thanks for coming out, guys, and sharing more about yourself and helping other people see how each of your 4 types function and how you see each of your parts is really helpful. So, peace out, take care, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Kendrick.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Bye.